thank you guys so much for having us on Screen by Screen. And yes, it was good to see you guys in Los Angeles last November. We had a conference called Futureworlds, which was a Metaverse Web3 conference, bringing together a lot of the top creatives, executives, creators in the space, because we saw that there wasn't a lot of people that were connecting in person, a lot of this online stuff. But as we came out of the pandemic, we saw an opportunity to bring some people together in the Los Angeles area. And we had about 43 speakers in November. So happy to be here. Today, we've got a couple of great speakers and guests that came from that series. We were talking about different lands and different metaverses that are developing right now. As you know, there's multiple different areas. Some are centralized, some are decentralized. But we've got Danny Brownwolf, who's coming from Upland, which is one of the top, I'll call it centralized platforms. Their uniqueness, I think, is in mapping real world addresses and street addresses and letting people buy in and play, because it's gamified, in a space that actually mirrors real world streets and areas and locales. And I think they've launched in, for sure, the US, Brazil, Portugal. I think they're looking at new territories as well. So we're going to welcome Danny. And also Lastraum K, who is joining us as a raccoon today because his other mouse didn't work. But Lastraum's part of the Decentraland, and they are a decentralized platform, which is one of the biggest. I think them and Sandbox and Voxels are probably the big three as far as decentralized metaverses go. But they're specializing in building out areas that are less controlled. There's still some, we'll get into the discussion here about how it works. But Lastraum, welcome to the show. Appreciate you guys coming on today.
Yeah, thank you for having us again.
Danny's here as well. Hey, Danny, how are you?
Glad to be here. I'm good.
Straight from Davos, I hear.
Well, yes, straight from Davos. It was the metaverse was quite the topic of conversation there. Davos is during the World Economic Forum, which is when leaders from all over the world, so you get prime ministers, ministers, and C-levels from all the top company, Microsoft, Meta, etc., all come together to discuss the world's problems and opportunities in 1 week. And then the tech companies and Web3 kind of took over the other side of town and did an anti-Davos conference. And then over the years, the two started to merge as the interest in Web3 decentralization, the metaverse, and digital assets have increased among the normal side of Davos. And now you really have a merge of ideas for 1 week of talking about okay, like how do we utilize this technology, whether it's for sustainability, for good, for social interactions, for some of the other goals that you have.
So let's start there for a second. So again, world leaders, top C-level executives from big institutional investment companies and other type of companies. How are they looking at metaverse? How are they looking at Web3? Is it something that's still in the ether that they can't even really wrap their heads around? Or are they really engaged and starting to put money behind it?
So they're really engaged. They put a lot of money behind it. Speaking to many of them and seeing what they're building, because a lot of them use Davos to showcase what they're working on. They all understand the vision and they all understand that this is the future, and they're not really sure how this will play out. And of course, part of our job is to advocate for the more open metaverse. I think one of my insights from seeing what they're building is that they're building things for brands. If you think about like Infosys and Accenture and all those big companies work with huge companies that are all like, okay, we want a presence in the metaverse. We want to do something that's more immersive. So a lot of them are building 3D spaces and virtual worlds for the brands that they work for. But those are built in silos. So they call it the metaverse, but I actually call it meta space, because it's an immersive virtual world. There might be an experience there. It might be a shopping experience or a music scene or something else, but it doesn't have the ecosystem around it. It doesn't have the economy, the community, the exploration, context of where does this live? Is it like another website, or is it part of a different platform? And I think that's where metaverses like Decentraland and Upland bring in something else to the table, because we're bringing the platforms that have that ecosystem, that have that relevance in the context.
It does seem like, because I saw you at a conference in San Jose last year that was sponsored by huge accounting firms. And I thought, what would big accounting firms be doing in the metaverse space? And it does seem like they're building it kind of for themselves. Like they were using it for their own clients, for their own corporate interests. I think they're missing a lot of what you're saying there, where the social aspects to the public, so that regular people can identify and build community and be together and experience things versus some corporate use.
And it kind of reminded me, I mean, obviously with all the caveats of like being a technology versus an application, but kind of reminded me 3-4 years ago when blockchain started being a big buzzword for all these companies, and they all started building private blockchains for their clients. And we were there trying to explain to them, it's like the value in layer ones in blockchain infrastructure and what it can provide, the different use cases are all built on the fact that it's interoperable, that it's permissionless, that it's transparent and open. And building private blockchains don't do any of that. You're building another closed data set. And I feel like they're looking at the metaverse in the same way, but it encourages me because in the past 4 years, we saw the slow death of the private blockchain, and most of the big companies that are serious about blockchain technology are building on decentralized platforms.
I think that's where things are going. And I think tech usually starts like that. It's very egocentric at first, and then it starts to become more open as development comes in and prices and costs go down. Lastraum, last time I saw you was at the conference in LA, and this is a perfect segue, I think, into the differences, some of the differences between Decentraland and Upland as far as a decentralized platform and more of a centralized platform. Do you see developments on the big institution side, investor side, big corporate side into the decentralized lands yet, or is that still far away?
No, I think it's definitely here, definitely relevant, especially in 2023. And I think piggybacking off what Danny said, I think centralized, decentralized, private, public, I think it all needs to exist. And I think we forget what the technology is because of NFTs. And everyone thinks that NFTs are equivalent to the blockchain, and they're not. They are a smart contract on the blockchain, which is a very, very, very powerful technology. And so, companies that run supply chain and logistics, I used to be a solutions architect for IBM way back in my day, like that can be totally replaced by blockchain in a large scale, small scale, private scale, public scale. Real estate, chain of title, when you own property, right? Blockchain technology. So, there's all of these buzzwords and big companies, public, private, everyone wants to get into the space. So I think I just like to see more of that and less of NFTs, honestly. I think the word NFT and the word metaverse have killed the concept or the integration of the technology, the actual use cases. And so whether your big brands want to do something public or private or decentralized or centralized, I think they just need to enter the space and understand this technology, because it is truly transformative what blockchain technology is. And so as working in Decentraland, which is on the spectrum way more decentralized than Upland, let's say, they both have their pros and cons, but at least people are understanding this next wave of technology and how to utilize it. And that's what I'm here for, is really educating and highlighting the technologies that we have, and then what are the use cases, benefits to these brands, and how can they potentially and eventually monetize them.
I think the other big difference that I see between some of the centralized and decentralized platforms runs around ownership, right? And I think when you're a creator and you're creating digital assets, number one, or if say you're a musician, you've got music rights, or you're a writer, you have copyrights, the value sometimes, and I'm thinking more of Roblox and some of the gaming platforms where you can create a skin there, or you can create some type of digital asset, but it seems to me that the ownership stays with the platform versus with the creator. I think with more decentralized platforms like both of yours in some respects, the ownership stays with the actual creator. There might be a split that goes back to the platform for hosting, but the control and the ownership of those rights seems to stay with the creator, which on the music side, I think is very important.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're disrupting a ton of technologies and industries at once. And yeah, I let's be honest, industries don't like to change that fast. So, the music industry being one of them, with way back with the iPod, and, other technologies like video games and platforms where you are owning your own gaming content and skins and items and guns and weapons and loot, that is a huge disruptor. And so getting those companies' brands on board is a huge task, but understanding that power of ownership, again, is so clouded and overseen by, just there's a huge cloud on NFTs, and people see that and they see JPEG, and there's so much more to ownership in the digital space. And so I'm really excited that the music industry is getting into it. We're working with Audius a little bit in Decentraland on an unofficial scale, but I'm in contact with their team. So, there's a lot of really cool opportunities, again, of but understanding that ownership aspect, I think, is huge.
You guys specialize in ownership, Danny, right? I mean, when you're buying a street address in Los Angeles on Upland, you don't even have to own the actual physical property. You're owning kind of the digital twin of that street address, right?
Yeah, everything. So Upland is what we call progressive decentralization. So there are certain things that are a must, which are true ownership of digital assets. So in Upland, you can own properties. You can build on those properties. You can then buy from different creators skins that go on that properties. We had a partnership with FIFA where we created a whole product that you could buy FIFA products, and with the World Cup, and now next year with the Women's World Cup. So the basics of it is, first of all, that there are different business models that are prevalent when you have true ownership, both for the creators and for the users, because the users now can create their own businesses of secondhand store for the digital items. And then you have the indie long tail game creators and artists who now have a platform to go directly to users and sell their creations in the context of the metaverse in a digital form, create derivatives of their more one out of one real world art in the metaverse. So it allows for a lot of new use cases. And what I'm most excited about is really the long tail of creators, the individual creators. And this is where I see the future of work changing in the metaverse, because it's no longer you have to be part of a big brand in order to be seen.
What do you, I'm just, because I know this is kind of a music centric crowd, the audience that we're speaking to, am I able to put up a song for streaming and or download on either one of your platforms, on Decentraland or on Upland?
On Upland, we're currently haven't focused on music. We focus more on visual arts more. So, for example, we worked with Jackie Tsai. He's a famous skull artist. He worked with like Yves Saint Laurent, the famous flower skull. So he, as an example, and maybe this is analogous to what you can do with music. He had a 1 out of 1 sale in Sotheby's. And at the same time, he had a derivative sale that was more contextualized for Upland of his skulls that was structural ornaments as a Halloween decoration in Upland. So if you take what the visual artists are doing and thinking about music, the same can be true there. You have different spaces in Upland, different developers who are building and connecting their games to Upland. Now you can have individual music artists selling in an open marketplace IP for or licensing for their music in order to be used there, without going through the middleman and in a very transparent and open marketplace.
So you can do it.
Yep. And same in Decentraland too. Decentraland actually has amazing audio quality. And you can stream any MP3 file, depending on the cores, the different types of internet protocol, if you have sharing capabilities for that file. But we're working with integrating Audius is a decentralized music platform, and people can upload. It's built on IPFS. It's one of the early successes of IPFS. And so they have APIs, and my company Last Lights is integrating them into scenes so that people can play Audius playlists, decentralized playlists, and receive info about the artist and things like that. And so it's really amazing to get audio inside these virtual worlds and metaverses, microverses, meta spaces, because it brings them to life. That's all about the immersion. There's just something different about audio when you're in a 3D environment versus on a 2D website.
No, one of the detractors I've seen is you go and it's, unless you're going to see a concert or something specific where there's mass audio that hits everybody, it's quiet. Right? You'll go somewhere and you're bouncing around, and you can see chat boxes come up sometimes, and maybe there's some audio in chats, but there's not really a soundtrack that I've seen many times, and I kind of miss that. I'm like, why isn't there music playing there? I know there's licensing concerns, and maybe, but if you're on someone's particular parcel, whether it's their property or their house or whatever they've built, you would think that they could control the audio programming while someone's there.
Yeah, it's just hard to do that. You need a programmer to program that. You need to have the rights to the songs that you upload with the scene or that you stream, and then we get into that licensing issue. So, anything that is uploaded to Audius is decentralized and can be token gated or paywalled based on their platform. So they can shut off their APIs for streaming certain audio files if you don't have the right access. So, that's what we want to do. We want to make more music accessible to more people inside these virtual spaces, because it does bring it to life.
I think, just for whoever doesn't know, Audius is like a performance society royalty, but only transparent. So you actually get paid as an artist for what is being used. And so they're really helping all the metaverse and virtual worlds tap into music and allow for creators to get paid and royalty accordingly. And I think here you have a great example in the metaverse. In Upland, the idea here is that you have the platform, and then when you get into a space, you go into you can exit or portal into a different game, a store, etc. And our vision, which still isn't built, so with a caveat, but our vision is that we would be able to provide a tool, just like Wix, if anyone's worked with Wix, that you have like a tooling library for those developers or shop owners. And one of those things would be, oh, okay, here's a music list that I can stream while people are in my store.
I think it's coming, and I think there's a huge amount of potential for music to be used in the metaverse. And like you said, there's going to be different third-party platforms that you plug in that will already have the rights cleared, already have a chain of monetization that goes back to the creators. But it's going to be, I think it's going to be like broadcast radio, where you walk into a space and there's music playing. You may not be able to pick out those songs that you want to hear, but whoever's in the space or controls the space will be able to set that playlist. And those days they're very close. But I think the point now is, if you're trying to buy, we'll hop into NFTs here, but if you're trying to buy an NFT, you kind of have to go into an NFT marketplace like OpenSea or Wearable or somewhere, and hopefully eventually that all starts to integrate into the space that you're at in one of your platforms, for example, so you don't have to go off-site. You don't have to click out and go somewhere else to participate. You can have all of this while you're on platform, right?
So in Upland, everything is in platform inherently. and so will music as an option when it comes to Upland.
And Upland is mostly, or I know you're trying to be more mobile centric, right? I've looked at you both on website and on a mobile device, but I think Upland is trying to drive participation through mobile devices. Is that right?
80% of our users use mobile. We've built the platform as mobile first, although we do have web and different experiences, different developers who built as a second layer and connected to Upland. They may only be on web or only on mobile, but we don't restrict that because we know we want to meet users where they are today, and users are on their mobile today.
Let's jump into NFTs super quick, because I think Lastraum touched on it a couple times. And I know, this whole FTX thing and the general public is conflating NFTs with exchanges, with blockchain, which are three different things. And I think that's kind of pulled down certain aspects of how the public views what really are digital assets at the end of the day. So one has the, let's call it the crypto winter, I guess is the phrase, but has the negative connotations in the NFT market or crypto market affected your platform at all? I mean, let's start with Lastraum. What do you see there?
I don't think so. Not at all. I mean, Doritos just launched in Decentraland today. And I believe, I'm sure everyone has had a Dorito once or twice in their lifetime. And so, they're not really paying attention to the crypto winter. It is out there. People need to maybe be aware of it. But again, as you mentioned, everything gets conflated and balled up into NFTs in the space. And there's so much more powerful technologies and understanding that really, with music, I would say music and artists and creators, that's what Web3 is. It's for the people that are creating, they own their creations, and then it's decentralized. No one can tell them what to do. And so brands are still seeing these spaces evolve to a point where they can, incrementally, and I want to see it go a little faster, but incrementally increase the immersion. Maybe you can buy Doritos, do discount codes, things like that, offer NFTs. So now you have a new customer loyalty base that is digitized that you can hopefully activate in the future, whether on a website or in person or in another metaverse. Maybe you've received something in Upland and you can go activate it in Decentraland or vice versa. So some of that interoperability with the underlying technology of the NFTs. So that whole crypto winter thing is for people that are watching floor prices and see all that. I was told by somebody, way early on that it's a waste of time to teach somebody about NFTs if they're not already asking you questions, to just move on. And because they don't, in their mind, they are paying attention to the headlines, the FTX collapse, the scams, the rug pulls. They see all of this negative news and they don't want to be a part of the conversation. And so it's really nice to see brands not paying attention to that and actually understanding this underlying technology and wanting to be a part of that conversation. And that's what I'm here for. People that want to be in the space don't pay attention to those words. They want to push the space forward for us as creators, as users, as owners, and see the space evolve successfully.
Excellent.
I'm not allergic to the word NFTs. I think it is important, and I do still try to educate about the technology itself and what it does, because people assume because of the initial applications that got popular, which is mainly art and digital assets that are JPEGs, but that is really the tip of the icebergs in terms of use cases that can be powered by the technology that's called NFTs. And I mean, giving an example from the music industry, but in a different angle, the whole Taylor Swift ticketing fiasco that happened around here, for me, that was like, this is the ultimate use case for NFTs, ticketing, okay? Because when you own an NFT, you buy directly from the creator, okay? And what blockchain technology allows is for a P2P trustless transaction. So if I want to buy now a Taylor Swift ticket from a secondhand on, I don't know, like Facebook, okay? I have no real way to authenticate it. And which or to know that I'm not getting a copy. And that's why people use centralized platforms that were in the center of this chaos, because they were charging like 300% markup on these tickets. And who's getting that markup? Not Taylor Swift, not her entire crew, and not the stadium itself. It's those middlemen who are the trusted third party to just mediate between me and someone who wants to sell me a ticket. What NFTs allow is, one, for the ticket itself to be sold trustlessly. So I can buy it directly from another person, with the smart contract being able to authenticate that, yes, this is 1 out of 1, this is an authentic ticket. And two, it also allows, just like you have a creator's fee for JPEG artists, you can have a secondary sale fee that goes to the actual creator, to Taylor Swift, to whoever is producing the whole concert. So the different use cases of NFTs beyond just what was initially hyped are tremendous. And I think we'll see more and more of these in our day-to-day life, not only in the music industry, but also because I think it's a really low-hanging fruit.
Yeah, just one point on that, Danny. I went to the college national championship football game in Los Angeles, where I'm based, and I bought a $300 ticket from Ticketmaster. Can you guess the service fee that I paid Ticketmaster for a $300 ticket to handle this trustless transaction that was a verified ticket that I was purchasing from somebody else? Can you guess on a $300 ticket what my service fee was?
$65.
$125.
Oh.
Right. And so unfortunately, I don't know how Ticketmaster works, so I'm not gonna, like, I will assume, but I don't think any of that went to any of the college NCAA, or if it was Taylor Swift, it would go to her, right? Like with NFTs, as you were mentioning, there could be a royalty portion of that $125, which would be way cheaper as an NFT. It would probably be like $7, maybe even if it was $50, I'd be okay with that. That was fine. But half of the ticket price was added on top of as a service charge. And that was pretty egregious to me. I paid for a $100 parking ticket. I paid $75 for the service fee for a parking ticket, for a parking pass. So, there's real world applications in these bad words, let's say, of NFTs and things that can actually enhance our experience as consumers, but also trickled back in royalties to the original performer, musician, artist, creator, where that middleman is gone and not taking 60% fees.
I used to manage Stone Temple Pilots back in the day. It was a big act in America in the mid-90s, and had a lot of experience with ticketing. And I'll tell you, most of those fees, well, all those fees are controllable by the artist. So at the end of the day, the artist agrees to this contract to perform, and they have the ability to negotiate any of those fees. And I did that with Ticketmaster back in the day when people said it couldn't be done. But I went directly to the CEO of the company and said, here's what we're going to do. My artist wants to have a $16 ticket. When you charge $6 or $8 on a $16 ticket, that's egregious, just like Lastraum was saying. And he said, what do you want to do? I said, well, why don't we make it a percentage of the face value instead of a flat fee? So now instead of $8 on $16, it was 10%. So it would go down to $1.60 instead of $8. And he said, fine, no problem. And then he talked about other fees. And I said, well, what happens if we push those fees onto maybe some of the higher ticket prices? Because in my head, the person that was trying to get a $16 ticket couldn't afford $30 in fees, whereas someone that's buying a Lastraum K $300 ticket probably wouldn't mind as much. But again, there's a way to—
Steve, you shouldn't be negotiating this. This should be a market. This should be I should be able to see which marketplace that has the lowest fees. That's where the market point is, and that's where I'll buy it without having to worry about the authenticity of it.
But here's the rub in ticketing, and I'm very, very familiar with the ticket market. The face value of the tickets is rarely the street value of the tickets, right? And I used to tell my artists all the time, that scalper over there is making more money tonight than you are. And they couldn't believe it. I said, let's do the math, right? You have a $20 ticket that is selling in the street for $200, right? That's $180 profit per ticket. If that guy sells 100 tickets, it's 10,000. And if you break down the amount of cost to put the show on and divide it by the number of band members, take out all the fees, the scalper is making more money for that show than you are, and he doesn't write the songs, perform the songs, anything. But the base of all that is the value of that ticket isn't $20. As much as the artist thinks that, oh, I want to help my fans out, the value of that is the street value at $200. So what really has to happen is many people might go, wow, a Taylor Swift ticket is $1,500. Yes, it is, right? I'm in LA as well. And the Lakers had LeBron James last night going up to break, the highest scoring NBA player of all time. And the tickets, and I happen to have Laker tickets, went from a face value of $54 up to $15,000 or $20,000. It sounds crazy, but no one was complaining to LeBron or the Lakers that the ticket value goes up. It's because a lot of demand entered the market to see that performance, that game in particular, and people are willing to pay it. And it's terrible. Well, it's not terrible. It's just the truth, right?
Yeah.
So
but that demand though should go to that demand should, I mean, in Web3, I don't say should, has the potential in Web3, that demand has the potential to go back to the artist, to the Lakers, to, not to Ticketmaster and the middleman, not to OpenSea or whatever, because these smart contracts have that capability. And that's, again, the bad word of the NFT space, but the beauty of it is really cutting out all the middlemen, unfortunately. And I've been a middleman my whole life. So, I that's why I write smart contracts and stuff, because I keep undercutting myself in these job opportunities. But that's the point of Web3. And so,
and let me take it a step further. Okay. Now you have in Upland, for example, when we talk about properties, we've done FSA properties, which are we understand that newcomers, obviously it's harder for them to compete with the true value. And we want them to have like a first way in, like a starter property, a starter home. So we have reserved properties that are FSA that are at a lower cost point. With NFTs, with blockchain technology, with something like soulbound tokens, which are NFTs that you can earn or own but not transfer. They usually represent like, okay, if there's certain things I have to do to be a fan, or I can get a soulbound token to show that I'm a student or something like that. You can have non-transferable NFTs using this technology. So the students, the university students, can get a lower, a cheaper ticket if that's what the artist wants or that's what the football team wants. But that ticket can also be programmed not to be transferable. So it's not like, oh, the students are buying it for 20 and selling for 1,500. So there's just a lot you can do with this technology. And if something like making sure your fans this is accessible to them, etc., it's doable, it's programmable. And this is what's exciting, to understand these different possibilities and what you can do and what you can program into these smart contracts.
I think the biggest thing is transparency, right? If we knew as the public where those service fees and ticket fees go, we'd be probably better with them. If they went to the artist, great. But what I think a lot of folks don't realize is the artist and the artist representatives, of which I was one, squeeze those promoters so hard because we know Taylor Swift is going to sell out. And it used to be that promoters took, and they still do, take great risks in concerts because no one knows until the ticket goes on sale if it's going to sell or not. And there's a multitude of factors that come into play, whether that show even goes on, right? What if there's a pandemic? What if the artist gets sick? What if they get injured? What if there's a weather problem and the venue gets snowed in? All these things can happen when you've got 20,000 people going to a show that affects each show's financial situation. The promoter generally takes those risks on. But what you're seeing is the promoter profits are down at some of those shows to 1 to 2% on the face value tickets. So what they're forced to do, and this is the ugly part of the business and is not transparent, is jack up the service fees and the ticket fees and the concessions and the parking. And that's a way for them to make up that small, tiny percentage they're making on the face value tickets. So again, this is back of house business in the music business, and most consumers have no idea this is going on. But when you see that $125 fee, Lastraum, my bet is most of that is going to compensate that promoter for the small margin they have in putting on that show. And again, it's controllable by whoever the artist or whoever's putting that show on. They can negotiate those fees up or down. They can sometimes use a different ticketing platform. The other thing most people don't know is Ticketmaster and AEG in the US control probably 80 to 90% of the venues. So those venues are contracted to use them for ticketing. They can't just hire a third-party blockchain ticketing solution, of which there are many. I speak to them all the time, but I always ask them, do you realize Ticketmaster has a 5-year contract with that venue? And by the way, they pay them millions of dollars in advance every year to keep that contract. So when you bring your ticketing startup in, and you guys did a $20 million Series A, and you think you're going to pay out 2 million here, 5 million here, your 20 million goes down to almost zero very quickly if you're going to try to go up against Ticketmaster. So it is kind of a monopoly. It is something that people have to use. But what I'm saying is you can negotiate those fees. And I think the biggest point is there has to be transparency in the demand and pricing of that, the market price of the ticket. The true street price of the ticket for Taylor Swift is not $15. Right? I can tell you that off the top of my head. It might be $1,500, it might be $15,000, but the public needs to accept this is a high-level artist and a small 10,000, 100,000 seat stadium, theater, whatever it is. It's a constrained supply, right? And you've got huge demand, constrained supply. The value is going to be high, so it's going to be expensive to get good seats at any high demand event. And I know they want to put it back on the big company. I'll have Ticketmaster is the devil, but Ticketmaster is a third party that's in it for profit. Number one, yes, they are. But two, they're also providing a service. And part of the problem is the fees that come involved with that are being pushed onto them by the artist and by the promoter that need to make more money because they're not making it on the face value deals. It's just inside baseball.
I mean, what I would love to happen just on this topic, and I don't know if we had another one to jump to, but would be Ticketmaster, integrates into blockchain. But because of the word NFT and FTX and scam and, Sam Brinkman-Fried or whatever, I think big brands in this sense are hesitant to adopt into these technologies and sort of turn off their brand to this sort of negative atmosphere, negative technology that hasn't really been proven out on a massive scale. So they're going to let us play around in our space with each other and have startups and raise millions of dollars and let this actually come to light, and they'll probably just buy these companies. And so I'm bullish on the fact that, again, getting back to the underlying technology, building out a really great product around the technology and not the hype of the words. And I think that'll be immensely successful for that company, but also for, if they're doing it, again, in that creative, curious way, to highlight the artist. In the end, that's what Web3 is about. So I'm super bullish on all of this, even though it seems daunting for us to break into these music industries, these, live events and stuff. I know Upland probably has concerts and stuff like Decentraland. It's definitely not a $125 fee to attend a virtual event. I'll tell you that.
Let's talk about that for a second. Are there any upcoming festivals or concerts in either of your spaces that you want to tell people about?
Well, there's actually one that's happening in both in parallel, and I think they're interconnected. So that's really exciting. Brazil's having its carnival in next month. Upland has partnered with Mangueira, which is the biggest samba school in Rio, and Decentraland's also having their own event in around the carnival. And there's actually the costumes of Mangueira that are going to be up for sale in Upland with the experience that's actually the digital twin of the Mangueira school of samba, and everything will be streamed. And in parallel, it would also be in Decentraland with a link back to Upland. So this is really exciting because the Brazilian Decentraland community sort of came and pushed the Upland community to do something together. And while we still don't have the technological bridges, we're starting to see this interoperability and interconnectivity, and it's really exciting.
Nice. What about you guys on Decentraland, Lastraum?
Yeah, definitely the Carnival is awesome. And then in end of March, the Metaverse Fashion Week. So it's a huge tentpole event, bringing in, again, artists and creators. On the digital fashion side, the music side of things happens at the end of the year. So this is a really great sort of kickoff to the beginning of the year, highlighting creators in the digital fashion space.
And you guys had a music conference, I think, I don't know, a few months ago, right? It was pretty big.
Yeah, the music festival is always around October, November. And again, it's really amazing to attend. It's free, and it's just gets better every year. The visuals, again, the audio is always spectacular.
That's good to hear, because a lot of times the connections on some of these are dependent upon your bandwidth, and it's sketchy. Someone's asking about moving from PCs, or moving to PCs from headgear. Where are you guys as far as hardware goes? I know we talked about Upland being on mobile, but do you see an improvement in the experience off of an Oculus, or where do you guys see that going?
I could start. So as I said, the design, the way Upland is designed is that we don't force any developer who wants to build experiences or games and connect them to Upland to use our platform, our tools, and then that experience only lives in Upland. I don't care if it's a Web 2 experience, Web 3, an Oculus mobile, or web. You can connect to Upland, connect to its ecosystem, its economy, its community, and use it as kind of like a launching pad. Some people call it like a Twitch, but discover, but in a like a discoverability mode, but also to the economy and the ability to then create digital assets in both worlds. So if we have different games where they're only on gamer PC, and we have games that are on mobile, and if someone wants to connect their Oculus game to Upland, they can do that too. So that's how Upland is designed. We're always cognizant of where the majority of users are and how the assets that they own can also be used in those different experiences. So the more we see demand in terms of developers who are building on those devices and then connecting to Upland and want the users to be able to use the assets that they own in Upland in those experiences, then that's kind of like the service that we will build and facilitate.
Nice. How about you guys, Lastraum?
Yeah, so Decentraland is open source, and there's a foundation behind it, and so they're working on the platform, which is on the browser and a client version right now. So an application on PC and Mac computers, eventually moving to a VR. But I think, again, we sort of VR is a buzzword that is sort of cart before the horse in terms of technology, like 3D TVs. Do people even have 3D TVs anymore? So, we shouldn't be talking about 3D TVs until we have HD. And so like, let's work on the technology first before we try to expect a VR space, because maybe that's not what the metaverse needs right now. And I think it goes back to our conversation in person, was like these unrealistic expectations get put on these virtual spaces because of something. I don't know why people expect the metaverse to be virtual reality. Maybe because of Ready Player One, I don't know, but we don't expect Call of Duty or Grand Theft Auto to be VR. So I don't think we should continue to expect these new types of virtual platforms to immediately rush to VR when no one else is doing VR yet. So
at the risk of sounding very much from California, until Apple comes out with VR glasses that I can wear for more than 2 hours, I don't see this going mass market. I'll be happy to be surprised.
Yeah, I can't wear my LCD mask for more than an hour. That thing was very uncomfortable.
It worked though. The raccoon's easier, right?
Yeah. So I agree with Danny. When Apple makes something that is aesthetically pleasing as a consumer, I will definitely be purchasing that.
Let me ask you about gaming for a second, because we just touched upon it there, but it seems like the gateway, the gateway drug into the metaverse could be or is already gaming. And I know Upland, for one, is very gamified, and I have some Upland properties, and I still don't take advantage of 95% of the gaming, aspects of it. I know Decentraland has a lot of gaming things involved as well. Do you guys see that as a necessary stepping stone to getting direct involvement, or is that something that's just part of the metaverse as we know it?
Who's going first? Me?
Sure.
I'll do it. We're looking at the metaverse native generation, the Zoomers and younger, the kids who are now, or for the past 10 years, have been playing Roblox for 3 hours a day. And they are, we call them the strollers, as opposed to the millennials who are scrollers. So we're used to scrolling our whole lives. They don't scroll, they stroll. They walk around and they look around and they look for experiences and fun things to do. So there are less couch potatoes who just like get bombarded with information. They're more about exploring, being co-developers, co-creators, co-builders. Like, okay, I'm building this space. I'm not just coming into the space to like check what's up. So the more developers start metaverse platform developers understand the way that audience operates, the more it's clear that everything is gamified, but the gamification is, again, not one-sided. It has to be part of the gamification is the co-creation.
Got it.
And I think
Yeah.
Decentraland's very good at that too, with their huge artist and creator network.
Yeah, it's I think gamification is huge. I just think it goes back to more behavioral patterns, as Danny mentioned, the strollers and scrollers. That's addicting. That's addictive and repetitive behavior, right? We are addicted to opening up our Instagram and scrolling a few times, tapping a few times. It's addictive. You got to look and see what's new, what's fresh. So if you can replicate that in any environment, you're going to have success. Games reward people for achievements and leveling up and leaderboards. You can show off your progress. So gaming is just a natural evolution of what's to come in these virtual spaces. I don't think it's anything revolutionary. I think the revolutionary part is companies like Last Slice that don't have any funding or aren't Microsoft or Blizzard or anything can participate in this creator economy and create gamified experiences that we wouldn't be able to before. I can't go create an Xbox game. Last Slice can't be a developer for Xbox. We just don't have the capabilities. And so we do in Decentraland. We do in these spaces in Web3. So I think that's where it's at. Just building experiences that make people tap into those behavioral patterns in an engaging way. I think we have sort of a leg up where we can offer rewards. Danny can in Upland and Decentraland through NFTs for your hard work, for your strolling around. You can receive these tokens, these badges of honors, these attendance tokens and things like that are NFTs that could have some value in the future, or you can show them off, or highlight your persona, your digital persona as a digital wearable. So I think there's even more benefit to participating in the strolling mentality in these metaverses.
I think it goes, we talk about the blur between creator and consumer, right? There's this Web3 metaverse space is unique in that you can consume and create. And once you do both of those things, you start to understand that balance. And you go, oh, well, this person's selling something that it took them X amount of time and effort and talent to create. I'm going to participate. I think that's a good exchange of value. Whereas sometimes in the Web2 space, you're just looking for the lowest price, not thinking about what type of value went into that product, right? Whether it's a digital asset or whether it's something physical, you just go, I want it for $9.99, and I don't care what it costs to make it. Where I think when we get into this space where you're actually in a community with the creators themselves, you're much more cognizant of the value that again went into thinking about and putting that product together. So that kind of blur between creator and consumer is an important part of the difference, I think, in the lands. Do you guys see that?
Not only creator, definitely. And it's also a question of understanding the community. The creators also understand different rarities and what the community wants. They're part of it. And that's why a lot of brands, part of the strategy that we talk to them about when they want to enter the metaverse is let's do co-creation, like with community members. Like, don't sell your NFTs that you've created, do a creators competition and have the community vote on it. And they all come up with things that are way more amazing than what your team can. That's one. And then I would take that a step further, is that when we talk about brands, a lot of the time we think about, more like commercial brands. It's not just that, it's also brands like UNICEF, and revolutionizing the whole concept of what does a GoFundMe campaign look like in the metaverse. So we did a couple of those. We did one for Ukraine this year. We did a campaign with Susan G. Komen Breast Cancer Foundation and with UNICEF. And UNICEF is a great example that it's not a GoFundMe, oh, we're doing a fundraiser, this is our goal. It's the brand UNICEF interacting with the users, creating NFTs that were skins of the house. That was a special sale of winter ornaments, just like you would decorate your house for Christmas. You decorate your upland house with like winter themed decorations that are UNICEF based, and everything went to as a donation to UNICEF. So all of a sudden you have like these type of brands also saying, it's like, okay, our entire campaign strategy is now really different because we understand the gamification and the interaction.
Interesting. I think there's a lot of potential for brand integrations, charity and donation models that we haven't even scratched the surface on at all, but that's an interesting one to hear about. And again, back to the creator consumer blur, where you're the same person, right? And you respect the other people in the community because they're creators and consumers as well. And I think back to the transparency issues where, everybody knows where the fees are going, everybody knows where the money's going. The token values will be something that I think reflect that. You're not seeing a lot of that kind of pump and dump that you see in let's just say off metaverse tokens, because here they're a currency, right? You're using them as a way to exchange for that value, which again is transparent, which is between creators, that type of thing, which I think makes for a great ecosystem.
And when talking about creators, I would also give the example, because a lot of times we assume artists and both music and visual artists, but content creators are very important too, in terms of now exploring different ways in the metaverse of monetizing and working with their communities better. So if you have right now a huge following in Twitter, and you do Twitter spaces, and those are interesting, a lot of people attend, your way to monetize until further notice, I don't know what Elon's plans are for microtransactions, tipping, etc. for creators, but until then, you don't really have a lot of options to monetize outside of being at the mercy of maybe YouTube. Here in the metaverse, you can have cafes where you have a space and maybe everyone's avatars comes in, and it's a similar content like a Twitter space, but maybe it's more immersive. You can show more things. Maybe there's an NFT gateway that only if I have a subscription, I get a specific NFT because I'm part of your community and I bought into the content creators community, I can come into those spaces. Or maybe I have a micropayment gateway to get into that space specifically because it's an interesting conversation. So the content creation is also going to be experimented, and they're going to be really interesting business models there.
I think there's a lot ahead of us. I think we're very close to leaving. Why don't you guys pop in your information, or you just say the best way to get in contact with you? Danny, what's the best way for anybody to touch base with you?
Probably Twitter, but I'll also add some other links.
All right, and Lastraum, how
Put it
about
in the-
Yeah, I would say Twitter, Discord, LinkedIn, it's all the same. So I'm pretty available all the time, even though I am sort of pseudo anonymous, but yeah, I'm always on my phone walking around on Twitter. So
excellent, excellent. And you can get me, Steve, at futureworlds.co or Twitter or LinkedIn. But I want to thank Danny and Lastraum for joining us today. I think we just scratched the surface on a lot of this stuff as far as the metaverse, Web3, how creators can benefit, how consumers can benefit. Sorry we didn't get to all the questions. I saw some stuff more about Audius. You may want to dive in deeper on the Audius side, or reach out directly to Lastraum on that. Happy to help you on my side as well. But again, thanks to Zach, and thanks to Darryl, and thanks to SCREEN for hosting us today. I really thank the audience for showing up and having some great questions and taking the time to listen to us.